border. Over the past few days, I've spoken. Before we get into things, I have some news to share regarding the Canada-US border. Over the past few days, I've spoken to President Trump about what we can do to slow the spread of COVID-19. Deputy Prime Minister Freeland has been in touch with Vice President Pence and Secretary Pompeo. I just spoke to President Trump again this morning, and we have agreed that both Canada and the United States will temporarily restrict all non-essential travel across the Canada-US border. Je viens de parler au président Trump et nous avons convenu que le Canada et les États-Unis vont interdire temporairement tout passage non essentiel à la frontière. Travelers will no longer be permitted to cross the border for recreation and tourism. In both our countries, we're encouraging people to stay home. We're telling our citizens not to visit their neighbors if they don't absolutely have to. Well, this collaborative and reciprocal measure is an extension of that prudent approach. I want to be clear, though, that essential travel will continue. Our governments recognize that it is critical that we preserve supply chains between both countries. These supply chains ensure that food, fuel, and life-saving medicines reach people on both sides of the border. Supply chains, including trucking, will not be affected by this new measure. Canadians and Americans cross the border every day to do essential work or for other urgent reasons. That will not be impacted. Ces jours-ci, these
days, all Canadians feel the consequences of COVID-19. To assure your security and safety, we ask for everyone to work from home, to avoid public areas, to buy only what you need in the grocery store and at the grocery store, and be gentle and empathic, and have compassion for those around you. We all need to do our part to protect our health and that of our close ones.
The spread of COVID-19 is forcing us all to change our ways, and for many people, that's a huge adjustment. If you work in a restaurant, drive a cab, organize events, or freelance to pay your bills, working from home is not so simple. Just like if you work in the oil and gas sector or the tourism and seafood industries, you're looking at the uncertainty in the global economy and probably wondering not only how long this is going to last, but how long your savings are going to last. No matter who you are or what you do, this is a time where you should be focused on your health and that of your neighbors. Not whether you're going to lose your job. Not whether you're going to run out of money for things like groceries and medication. Last week, we announced a whole range of measures to protect jobs, small businesses, and the economy, from waiving the waiting period for employment insurance sickness benefits to kick in, to increasing support for employers and businesses. We introduced special measures under the work sharing program to help employers who fall on hard times during COVID-19. And if your business faces a cash crunch, we will help you bridge to better times. We're working with our financial crown corporations through the Business Credit Availability Program to protect jobs and businesses with $10 billion in credit. Mais comme on l'a dit la semaine dernière,
but as we said last week, this is only the first step. When we announced those measures, we said we would do more. And this what brings me here this morning.
In these extraordinary times, our government is taking extraordinary measures. The measures we're announcing today will provide up to $27 billion in direct support to Canadian workers and businesses, plus $55 billion to meet liquidity needs of Canadian businesses and households through tax deferrals to help stabilize the economy. Combined, this $82 billion in support represents more than 3% of Canada's GDP. Let's start with people who don't qualify for employment insurance and don't have access to paid sick leave. Our government will introduce the Emergency Care Benefit, which will provide money every 2 weeks to workers who have to stay home. People will receive this benefit for 14 weeks for an amount comparable to what would be paid through EI. This applies to people who fall ill, people who've been placed in quarantine or have to self-isolate, It also applies to those who have to take care of a family member with COVID-19, but, as I said, fail to qualify for EI. If you lose your job and you do not qualify for EI, we will be introducing a COVID-19 emergency support benefit to help you. This will apply also to people who are self-employed and have to close shop because of the virus. Je veux commencer par ce qu'on va faire pour les gens qui ne sont pas admissibles à l'assurance emploi. Notre gouvernement va instaurer l'allocation de soins d'urgence qui donnera de l'argent aux travailleurs qui doivent rester chez eux à cause de la COVID-19
COVID-19 every 2 weeks.
Les gens recevront cette prestation
People will
pour
get
14
these
semaines,
monies for 14 weeks and a comparable amount to that of EI. This measure is aiming at those who are falling ill, those who are put in quarantine, and those who need to be self-isolating. It also applies to those who need to take care of a family member who has COVID-19, but as I said, but are not eligible to EI. If you lose your job and you're not eligible to EI, we will put in place an emergency support allocation to help you. This measure will apply also to independent workers who need to stop their activities due to this virus.
As part of this economic plan, our government will take additional steps to protect jobs. We will provide employers of small businesses with a temporary wage subsidy equal to 10% of salary paid to employees for a period of 3 months. This will encourage employers to keep staff on the payroll during these uncertain times. Pour protéger les emplois, notre gouvernement offrira aux employeurs des petites
We'll
entreprises
offer employers of small businesses salary help, a temporary salary help that equals 10% of their employees' salaries for 3 months. This is a measure that will help employers to keep their employees during these times of uncertainty.
We're in the middle of tax season, and I know a lot of people are wondering what COVID-19 means for their personal finances. For those who've filed their taxes and find out that they owe money, they will have until August 2020 to pay. Si vous faites votre déclaration d'impôt,
If you make your tax declaration and find out that you owe money, you have till August 2020 to pay. We also plan for a more targeted help in the next few months for different groups of people who are particularly touched by this virus or are in a vulnerable situation. This brings me to the next measure we're announcing today, which is for parents.
Families with young kids are going to especially difficult with school closures and additional childcare responsibilities. Parents already know how much the Canada Child Benefit helps with the costs of raising kids. To take some of that pressure off, our government will temporarily boost the CCB in the coming months. To
help parents face these difficult times, our government will temporarily bonify the Canadian allocation for children in the next few months.
With this plan, we're also going to do more for lower-income people. In May, our government will supplement the GST credit, a tax-free payment sent to low-income Canadians every few months to offset the consumer tax that they pay. Every adult who qualifies will receive up to $300 with $150 for every child. To
help those who have a small or modest revenues, our government will increase the help for GST. In May, adults who are eligible will get up to $300 and up to $150 per child.
Canadians are feeling the impacts of COVID-19. Some groups are particularly vulnerable. For people who are still paying off their student loans, including young people and those who are starting a family, our government will put in place a 6-month interest-free moratorium on their Canada student loans. For people experiencing homelessness, we are doubling the Reaching Home program, which provides funding to communities to help them address their local needs. For anyone fleeing domestic or gender-based violence, we will boost funding for shelters that provide sanctuary when self-isolating at home is simply not an option. And to support immediate needs in First Nations, Inuit, and Métis Nation communities, we are setting up a distinctions-based Indigenous Community Support Fund. This list is by no means exhaustive, but these are some of the things our government is doing to make sure that no matter where you live, what you do, or who you are, you will get the support you need during this time. In Canada, public health should never hinge on financial considerations. Aujourd'hui, on annonce un plan
Today we're
pour aider
announcing
les
a
gens.
plan to help
On se
people.
concentre sur les
We're
besoins les plus pressants,
focusing on the
mais comme
most
le
pressing
dit
needs,
depuis
but as I said
notre
since the
réponse
beginning,
évoluera
our
au fur et à
response
mesure
will
que la
evolve
situation
as the
évolue.
situation evolves.
Peu importe ce que l'avenir nous réserve,
What the
les
future
Canadiens
has for us,
peuvent compter sur nous.
Canadians can count on
Notre
us.
travail, c'est de vous
Our job is to support you, is to give you this help where you need it the most. And that's what we're doing with the measures we're announcing up to today, and that's what we will continue to do.
Now, I want to turn to additional measures for businesses as part of this economic plan. To help businesses navigate these uncertain economic times, Export Development Canada will provide support to Canadian companies affected by the global situation. For farmers and our primary food producers, we will boost Farm Credit Canada. And we know some sectors of our economy are more vulnerable to COVID-19 than others. That's why in the coming days, we'll be looking at ways in which we can support them all, including through instruments like the Canada account. L'annonce d'aujourd'hui donne suite aux mesures
Today's
que nous
announcement
avons
is a
déjà
follow-up
prises
to
pour
the
protéger
measures
les
we already
Canadiens,
taken
leur
to
santé
protect
et
Canadians,
notre
their
économie.
health, and our
Le
economy.
ministre Morneau a
Minister
également
Morneau
obtenu auprès des banques
also
canadiennes
got
un engagement
from Canadian
à
banks a
apporter un
commitment
soutien aux
to
entreprises et
support
aux gens
businesses
touchés par la
and those
COVID-19.
touched by
Je
COVID-19.
sais qu'il maintient
I know that he
un
maintains
contact régulier dans ce dossier,
regular
ainsi
contact
qu'avec
on
les
this
dirigeants
file and
d'entreprises,
with
les
the business
représentants
leaders,
syndicaux,
union
ses homologues
representatives,
internationaux.
and international
Our
counterparts.
team is paying close attention to the economic impacts of decisions we make across the board to slow the spread of this virus. On Monday, I announced that Canada was closing its air borders to people who are not Canadian citizens or permanent residents, with some exceptions. We also announced a range of other measures on travel. But travel restrictions will not apply to commerce or trade. We are working continuously to ensure the supply of important goods to Canada. Today, we've announced $27 billion in direct support to Canadian workers and businesses, plus $55 billion to meet liquidity needs of Canadian businesses and households to help stabilize the economy through tax deferrals. Economic measures will ensure that our economy rebounds after this. And while we are taking a significant step today to help families get through these challenging times, our government is prepared to do more. But whether we're talking about economic, travel, or health measures, collaboration and coordination remains essential. Our team is in constant communication with our colleagues in the provinces and territories, as well as Indigenous leaders and communities, to ensure that we have a coordinated, Canada-wide approach so we face this and recover from this together. We're also working with our international counterparts. Over the last number of days, I've spoken with leaders from around the world, including with fellow G7 leaders. Working together is how we'll get through this, as families, as a community, as a country. Like many of you, over the past few days, I've seen stories of people doing just that, of people donating money to food banks to help those in need, of friends setting up online groups to chat, of retired nurses and doctors stepping up to help, of young people giving a hand to elderly neighbors by dropping off some extra groceries at their door. I have to tell you, it gives me a lot of hope. I want to close by recognizing everyone on the front lines who's doing an incredible job of keeping Canadians safe and healthy. Grocers keeping their shelves full and our families fed. Postal workers helping us stay home. Pharmacists filling our prescriptions. Healthcare professionals caring for our most vulnerable. Public health officials and first responders looking out for our safety. I know it's a hard time, but that's exactly why we need to keep supporting each other. Our government is here for you, and your fellow Canadians are here for you too. Merci. Thank you, everyone.